Welcome to the Great American Shootout podcast featuring Blue and Mass. Whether it be tournament recaps, rankings, or in-season analysis, we are your source for all things Texas high school basketball. Hey, welcome into the Great American Shootout podcast. I am your host, Ryan Massid, joined by Blue Zertuche and Sam Lowe. Today we are talking about Great American Shootout in its entirety and all of the reach that it has that you may not know about behind the scenes. So, Sam, Blue, how are we doing today, fellas?
Good, ready to go.
I'm good.
Fantastic. Let's just jump right in. Sam, I'm gonna pass it to you, and I want you to touch on the history of Great American Shootout, where its roots began, how it started, and kind of how it's turned into what it is today.
Well, the Great American Shootout started in 1988. Mike Kunstock was a high school coach. At the time, he was a high school coach at Irving High. And he said his story is he always had players. He always had college coaches calling him about players, wanting to talk about players in the state, and they didn't really know where to start. Texas is a big state with a lot of schools. And so his idea was, how do we help Texas high school players get recruited and get seen by college coaches? So he came up with the idea of running a tournament in the summer. And that was back in 1988 before summer basketball was a big thing, the monster that it is we know today. So he started a tournament. It was in HEB, is what we call it here in Dallas, Hurst Euless Bedford. He used L.D. Bell High School and Euless Trinity High School. 4 courts going, like 40 teams. Back then, you had to be really good to make a team. I mean, that was 40 teams in the entire state of Texas, some out of Oklahoma, some out of Arkansas. I think the first year was maybe those 3 states. But if you weren't a player, you had a hard time finding a team because there just weren't many summer teams. So every team was loaded. Every team was stacked. You'd have the top 5 teams out of Houston, the top 5 teams out of Dallas, some Central Texas, a couple Oklahoma, Arkansas. 41-team tournament. College coaches came to it. And so that's where it started. That's the roots. From there, 1989, first year I worked at Great American Shootout, 1989. I was the gopher, clock and book, just a high school kid who got my feet wet in the basketball scene. Didn't really know that it would become a career, and in 2020 I would still be doing it 30 years later. So those first 7 years, it was in HEB. We had some big names working the Great American Shootout back then. Coach Buzz Williams of Texas A&M was a clock and book keeper. Coach Chris Beard at Texas Tech was on clock and book. I was a gopher, got to meet those guys when they were getting their roots in the basketball scene and become what they are today. So it's awesome to have a relationship with them that goes back 30 years and knowing all of us when we were just kids running around because we like basketball, and to see what they've become has become incredible. But first 7 years, HEB, moved to Denton. That's where the Great American Shootout kind of became a national, bigger name. Was at University of North Texas for 1995 to 2009. Grew from that 41 teams in the first year to about 250 teams by 2000. 2010, moved to Duncanville Fieldhouse, moved to the south side of town. Over the 10 years in Duncanville, grew from that 250 teams up to 450, more national, even international. I've had teams, had the Chinese national team at one point, had teams from England, Australia, Bahamas. So it just grew from Mike's idea as a high school coach to a Great American Shootout that's not just one event in July now. It's 4 or 5 tournaments in the spring, 4 or 5 tournaments in the summer, fall events. So it's become a whole place in itself for basketball.
And obviously y'all continue to evolve, specifically with some of your camps. Blue, talk a little bit about what Tops in Texas is.
The individual camps have always been around. I'm not too sure what year that started, Sam, but there was always an opportunity for individuals to be evaluated by the Great American Shootout Texas Hoop staff in different parts of the state, and it continues today. Obviously, it's bigger in numbers now. You have Tops in Texas, which is a combination of underclassmen, and then you have the unsigned senior players that get to showcase every spring. Our fall Tops in Texas is the combination of both mixed in together. And so the Tops in Texas has just shown the variety of kid that you get from each classification that can start in 8th grade, go all the way up to the senior class. They're coming from all over, Amarillo, El Paso, South Texas. And it gives us, these camps are giving, like I said, the players an opportunity to be evaluated, but also it gives us, the evaluators, a chance to see players that maybe we did not reach throughout the season at some point. And so these camps are made for us to look for the next a player that can play at the next level, whether it's Division III all the way up to Division I.
Right. So that is a perfect, brings me to my next point. You have the tournaments, you have these camps. So what do you do with all this information, which moves us into the website, texashoops.rivals.com. Blue, you want to tell us a little bit about how you take all of this information from what you're seeing from all these kids at the camps and tournaments and what you do with that website?
What once started back in the 90s as a newsletter, a monthly newsletter or quarterly newsletter, has now turned into a website of texashoops.rivals.com. We're very fortunate, and we have that relationship with Rivals, the biggest database of players from around the nation. And so we take that information that we gather from Great American Shootout tournaments, from evaluations throughout the high school season, from Tops in Texas, and we do articles on the kids. We do high school rankings that are done 3 or 4 times a year for each class, and it gives fans the knowledge to know, who are the best players in the state. It gives a kid a chance, an opportunity to see, who am I catching? Who do I need to be better than in order to be put into these rankings?
Which moves into y'all's scouting service and what the connections that you've built with coaches all over the state and beyond. And just how does this look? Because you did mention that the articles and rankings, that's for the fans as well as the kids. But then some of these kids obviously are big time and they're going places. So how does that all fall in line?
Well, then we have the scouting service, which is directly targeted towards the college coach. So what a fan might see on Texas Hoops is the player version, the high school version, the fan version. A college coach gets a more detailed breakdown, evaluation, analysis of players. We have hundreds of colleges and college coaches that subscribe to our service. And then we have our database of thousands of college coaches that get information, updates about our tournaments, updates about our events, when they're going to be held. So the scouting service really is targeted towards giving them a feel for a starting point in recruiting. If you're halfway across the country and you want to get your hand in the state of Texas, it gives them a place they can look at our database online, look at our scouting service, and go, okay, here's 5 or 10 guys I can target in that state. I need to get to know them. I need to reach out to them. I need to get some film on them because I'm going to be in there in April. I'm going to be in there in July, and I need to know where to start. So we feel like we can give colleges all over the country a real starting point on who to target and who's out there in a big state.
So clearly there's just been such big innovation since the conception of Great American Shootout, which kind of leads me to my next point. I mean, how is Great American Shootout branding itself using social media? What are the things that it's doing to connect itself to the fans, to the players, to the coaches? Blue?
Well, social media is so instant. And
right.
So, of course, with our Twitter with our Instagram that we have started, with Texas Hoops Television on YouTube. There's a lot of ways to get a lot of eyes quicker onto content. And Michael Timmons, who will be on a later podcast to explain a little bit more about Texas Hoops Television, I mean, that's been around for 6-7 years, and it's grown that especially right now, if you're looking to watch games, if you're looking to watch highlights, head on over to Texas Hoops Television, and you can see full game breakdowns of players, and it's another opportunity for college coaches also to watch, get a feel for a kid with the Texas Hoops Television brand. Social media, we're fortunate enough that to be verified through Twitter with nearly 22,500 followers. So just think, once we put out a tweet, how quickly to the masses that all those eyes that see a player, the college coaches that follow us, which leads to a phone call, which leads to a question. And so when you put all those pieces together with the YouTube channel, Instagram, and Twitter, there's a lot of information that gets into the hands of people very quickly.
Yeah, man, that's amazing, the reach that Great American Shootout has, and clearly that's what you have going on right now. And we'll be sure to talk about where you can find those things on Twitter and Instagram later in the show or in the show notes. Let's kind of pivot to the newer things that Great American Shootout is adding to its brand. One obviously being this podcast. Luckily, I'm going to get to help host it. Blue, you're going to host it sometimes, and we're just going to have content on here that can be taken in within 10 to 20 minutes. That's our goal of every podcast. And quite frankly, it's going to be about all things, or being your source for all things Texas hoops or Texas high school basketball, whether it be game of the weeks, player ranking updates, tournament recaps, under the radar players. We're going to have all types of different types of shows to really give you, the fan, everything that you want. And we're going to sprinkle in coaches and a whole bunch of different things. So obviously subscribe, shameless plug, but go ahead and subscribe, because we're going to be trying to put out this content weekly. Sam, you were talking about a new app that y'all are developing. What is that about?
Well, we hope a lot of our fans and followers saw that we used our GASO, our Great American Shootout app, to put the high school playoff brackets in this year, give people a quick source for where the games were going to be, the times, the locations as we went through the state tournament. So that was our first attempt to kind of get the ball rolling in that area. But what we've done is we're going to have a new app. It's going to be the GASO Texas Hoops High School Scoreboard app. And next year we're going to target getting every 6A and every 5A district score posted, hopefully posted the night of the game. So you want to know how District 6 5A is doing, who's in first. The standings will be there. The schedule will be there for every game in the district. The standings for every game in the district. So every 6A, 5A district will be at your fingertips in an app. And you can look and see, okay, your District 6-5A, and when you want to know who your playoff opponents can be, you can look, you can follow your friends around the state, coaching friends, or just teams that you might know a player on as a player. So to give you a source for all the 6A and 5A districts. Hopefully after next year we can break into even the 4A, 3A, and maybe get the whole state at some time. But we're going to break in that app next year to really give a one-stop source for all the results in the state.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then I'm lucky enough to join this team, this Great American Shootout team, with training. And there's going to be kind of a branch off of Great American Shootout. It's going to be called GASO BDT, which Great American Shootout, obviously acronym GASO, BDT stands for Basketball Decision Training. And kind of what's going to go into that is I'm going to offer training during any time that it's not high school basketball season. There's going to be sessions from March to May. There's going to be sessions from June, July, and there's going to be sessions from August to October, which leads you into the session. There's going to be a podcast that really breaks it down more specifically, but the point of it is to create elite decision makers. Because basketball, I've heard it said that you make over 1,000 decisions in a game, and if your decision making is not very good, well, you're probably not going to be a very good player. On the flip side, if you're making great decisions, man, that gives you staying power to stay on the floor. So that's kind of my goal, and I'll obviously delve a lot deeper into that at a later time. Blue. Player analytics, what is that? The player analytic breakdown.
Well, the GASO BDT player analytics is just an opportunity for high school players to send in full game film and for us to give them feedback and data. That data being the analytics that is so important in today's game. And so far, what we have found out by using the small samples that we have already started using is that players' games don't change much from game to game. And this really gives us a sense of what a player can do on the court. Where are they most successful? And I think that's very important because when you can break down with shot charts, with the heat maps, you can show a player, this is where you're good at shooting from. How do you get from point A to point B? What does that look like? And that kind of feedback will help with that player to become a better teammate, a better high school player, and then even college player as they can send off those all that information data off to college coaches.
Right, and this is going to be under the roof of BDT, basketball decision training, because we want to harness what you can do as a basketball player, and we want to make your decisions the best they can be. We are going to have a full podcast on this, kind of explaining what it is. I think we're rolling it out a little quicker than we once thought because of all the things that are going on in this world, and it's not just feedback. It's going to be an opportunity to showcase yourself as well. We're going to give you a social media page with that. We're going to give you a highlight clip with that. So we are going to give you feedback, but we are going to tell you, hey, man, this is where you're doing great.
I think one thing that's important for people to know is that our tournaments have been wiped out for the month of April, but this has given us some time to build on what we were brainstorming on 8 months ago with the analytics, with the high school scoreboard that will be available once the basketball season starts. This is just giving us a lot of opportunities to focus and to start up the next phase of our company, which during this time we're still working, and we're looking to see how can we help the basketball player, how can we help the college coach, and so all this is starting to come together, which is kind of an exciting time in the basketball office.
Couldn't agree more, and that is a perfect wrap up to this podcast, and I hope this gives you a fuller view of what Great American Shootout is as a company, and I hope that you would join us in all of the avenues that you can moving forward. So I just want to hit on a couple things. Thank you for listening, first of all. You can follow us at Texas Hoops GASO and at GASO BDT. If you do want to follow the Texas Hoops television, that's going to be at Texas Hoops TV. And you can also get on YouTube, type that in, and watch some highlights and breakdown of full games. You can follow us on Instagram at Texas Hoops GASO, or you can just visit us at our website, texashoops.rivals.com or greatamericanshootout.com. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show.